Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and the Houston Texans trade up for Nathaniel Dell in the draft, as the Texans were sitting at 73 here in this draft tonight, and they decided to trade up in the draft. They were sitting at 73 and ended up trading up for Nathaniel Dell, wide receiver from Houston. Houston Cougars wide receiver, first player from Houston to go off the board in this draft. So not only is it, and I'd be cheering for him if he got drafted by somebody else just because he went to Houston, but it's even better that he's coming from Houston to Houston. So he does not have to. That not only is that good for him, but I was just thinking about this, and I don't think the Texans are in a position to be worried about having to fly in these players. But the funny thing is, I said to my dad while watching, I said, the Texans aren't going to have to pay any money to fly this guy in because he probably still in, and I'm not wrong, I could be wrong, but he probably is still in Houston unless he's with his family, which that's a different story. But I was just joking around. I mean, they don't have to, maybe just have to pay for an Uber to bring him in. But I was kidding around with the people that were over at the house tonight. But that's a great selection. I really like it. There are some upsides, there are some downsides. And I'm just going to start off with the downside right away because I don't think there are a lot of downsides. My only downside is all the wide receivers that are currently on the Texans, and that makes me sort of think, how much playing time will Nathaniel Dell get in his rookie season? You have Noah Brown, you have Robert Woods. They're most likely expected to be starters for the Houston Texans, along with Nico Collins, who's expected to be a starter. And then John Mechie, he's a guy that's going to be playing a lot for the Texans, and he might not even be a starter next year to start off the year. And then you got Nathaniel Dell at the 5 spot. So I think Nathaniel Dell could be a starter if Collins would to get hurt. And I'm not, I know you never want to wish anybody to get hurt, but Nico Collins in his first 2 years in the NFL has had some injury problems. So if it were to happen again, I think Nathaniel Dell, that is a spot where Nathaniel Dell could be where he starts to play a little. But wouldn't you think that, if Nico maybe gets hurt again, John Mechie would start, and then Nathaniel Dell would be the 4th wide receiver and get more time as the 4th wide receiver. It's it's interesting to think about. I think he will do something he did a lot in Houston. I think he's going to do punter returns a lot, which the Texans did sign. I can't remember his name, but they did sign a punt returner. He's not really he does punt returns, but he's more of a kick returner. And they signed, I can't think of his name, from Pittsburgh, and he's a really good kick returner. But he's not full punt returner, but he also mainly kick return. So one of the questions is, for the Texans is, who's going to be the full-time punt returner next season? You got the guy, I can't remember his name, God help me. The guy from Pittsburgh you signed, you re-signed Tavier Thomas, who's the Texans safety, who also plays special teams, big special teams guy, and has done some kick returning and punt returning. And I got Nathaniel Dell, wide receiver you just drafted, who's also a punt returner, has done a lot of punt returning and did it pretty well at U of H. So is there a chance Nathaniel Dell gets some reps at punt returner? I think there is a great chance because he's a speedy guy. He's a guy who definitely can maybe get you a touchdown or two a year on the punt return, maybe, possibly, if he's doing it, frequently. But that's it. That's enough of punt returning. We're not going to be. That could be something that he could do a lot in his rookie year with not playing a lot of wide receiver, as he might do in the rest of his career. But moving on from punt returning for Nathaniel Dell, wide receiver, I love it because he's a deep threat. He can go deep for you, and C.J. Stroud, a quarterback coming in from Ohio State, he's a guy who is going to love throwing the ball deep. And I'm not saying Nathaniel Dell is the only guy that can go deep and get it for C.J. Stroud, but he's a hell of a deep ball wide receiver, hell of a deep threat. And Noah Brown isn't a really big deep guy. He can do it, but he's more of a 20 to 30 range. He's more of a slot guy. And then John Mechie, I think it's possible from him as well. He can definitely he's a really decent deep threat as well. And so is Robert Woods. But I think Nathaniel Dell, his deep threat is just amazing because of his speed and his route running. And I just think he's going to be really good. And my only concern is when he's going to touch the field. Because I'm starting to think if everybody in that wide receiver core that currently is on that wide receiver core for the Texans is on that roster, he might not play a lot in his rookie year. He could, if someone misses a game, he could be that backup wide receiver, that fourth wide receiver to check in for the Texans if someone needs a rest or, they play maybe a 4 wide receiver set. But I don't know if he'll play a lot in his rookie year. That's the only downside for me. But he'd have a lot of time after that, though. But like I said, he's a nice deep threat. He's a great punt returner. He has great speed, and he's from Houston. That's not a huge upside, but we'll take it. I think he's a good kid as well. I think he's a really good kid, and I think he's a great wide receiver. I think he's going to be really good for the Texans. Maybe C.J. Stroud can, get him in little screenplay actions as well. I need to watch some more film on him, to be honest, because when they got drafted, ESPN didn't play a lot of clips, but a lot of the clips that ESPN played were a lot of deep ball plays, and that's why I keep referring to the deep threat with him, and him going deep. That's why. But I've seen him a little bit in slot, a little bit, and then Houston did use his speed to ability last year a little bit. And to be honest, I didn't watch the Cougars much last year, even though I'm from Houston. I watched a lot of the Longhorns, and I'm from Houston. I'm a Houston Cougars basketball fan, but I'm a Texas Longhorns football fan. It's complicated. Texas football, Houston Cougars basketball, very complicated story. But I definitely did know of him, and I think it should turn out to be a great pick for the Texans. I'm going to grade it as a B+. I love it for the Texans, and you guys have your thoughts on the selection for the Texans at 69. Nathaniel Tank Dell is staying in Houston. He ain't going anywhere. But you guys have your thoughts on the draft selection and the video, and that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out. Go Texans.